The bitter taste you wake up with is not coming from your mouth. It is coming from a lot lower down, and it is climbing higher at night than at any other hour of the day. When you lie flat, the valve at the top of your stomach loses gravity's help, and a fine acid mist can drift all the way up to your tongue while you sleep. That is one of 3 overnight causes, and the specific taste you notice actually tells you which one is yours. Stay with me to the end, because the fix is completely different for each, and getting the wrong one wastes months. Today I am going to show you how to read the taste in your own mouth the way I would read it sitting across from you. And by the time we finish, you will know which of the 3 problems you most likely have and what to do about it this week. Now, before we go further, let me guess what you have already blamed. You figured it was the garlic in last night's dinner, or 1 glass of wine too many, or just what teeth do after 60 years of use. Maybe you decided your toothpaste stopped working. Those are the easy answers, and every one of them is wrong, or at least beside the point, because none of them explain why the taste is worst in the first 10 minutes after you open your eyes, and then fades once you are up and moving. Food does not do that. A worn-out toothbrush does not do that. Something that happens specifically while you are lying down does, and that timing is the biggest clue on the table. I am Dr. James Weatherly, and this channel exists for one simple reason. The things that go wrong slowly, the ones that never feel urgent enough to bring up in a rushed appointment, are exactly the ones nobody ever explains to you, and I would rather you understand your own body than stay quietly worried about it. So let me reframe this whole thing for you, because once you see it my way, you will never ignore that morning taste again. Your mouth is not making a mistake each morning. Think of it as a report card written overnight. All night long, while you are completely unaware, your body is running its quiet maintenance, and your mouth sits at the meeting point of 3 different systems. It is where your digestion ends, where your breathing passes through, and where the glands that keep everything moist do their slow, steady work. When any one of those 3 systems has a rough night, it leaves a residue behind, and by morning that residue has a flavor. The taste is not the problem. The taste is the readout. It is your body handing you a note that says, here is what happened while you were asleep, and almost nobody is taught how to read the handwriting. Here is why this slips past so many people, and I want to be fair about it. A morning taste is the kind of thing that feels far too small to mention. You're not going to book a visit over it, and if you did happen to say it out loud, it sounds almost silly next to the blood pressure and the knee and the medication list you are already there to discuss. So it never comes up. It is not that anyone is careless. It is that the appointment is short and the taste seems trivial, and the one clue that could tie 3 different things together gets left in the parking lot. Let me tell you about a man I will call Raymond, because his story is the clearest way to teach you this. Raymond was 71, a retired pipe organ tuner from Asheville, North Carolina, a man with a better ear than almost anyone I have known, and hands that could feel a note go flat. He spent his whole working life in cold church balconies, with his head tilted up inside enormous instruments, listening. And when he came to understand what I'm about to show you, he told me the funny thing was that he had spent decades listening to everything except his own body. His daughter was the one who pushed him. She had stayed over during a visit, heard him up at night, and noticed he kept a glass of water on the nightstand that was always empty by dawn. She was the one who said, "Dad, something is not right," and he came in mostly to prove her wrong. What Raymond described was this. Every morning he woke with a sour, sharp taste, and underneath it, something he called tinny, like the taste of holding an old key on your tongue. It was bad enough that he had built a whole little routine around it. He kept a tin of strong mints on the nightstand and reached for one before his feet even touched the floor. He had stopped kissing his wife good morning until after he had brushed, twice, which is a small, sad thing when you have been married 44 years. He told me he had quietly started drinking his morning coffee black, not because he liked it that way, but because he had decided the taste ruined the cream anyway. Little accommodations, one after another, the way we all slowly rearrange our lives around a problem instead of solving it. And he was sure, absolutely sure, that it was his stomach, because his own father had suffered with heartburn, and Raymond had decided years ago that he had simply inherited it. He had even started skipping his evening cup of coffee to fix it, and when that did nothing, he simply assumed it was one more thing he would have to live with. And here is the first thing I want you to sit with, because it is the first piece of real value I promised you early. Raymond did not have classic heartburn. He had almost no burning at all. And that absence is precisely the point, because the most common form of nighttime acid trouble in older adults produces no heartburn whatsoever. It is silent. The acid does not announce itself with a burn in the chest. It rises quietly as a fine mist, and the only place it leaves a fingerprint is up high, on the back of the tongue and the throat, as a sour or bitter taste at dawn. Let me explain the mechanism, because this is where it gets genuinely useful. At the top of your stomach, there is a ring of muscle that acts like a one-way gate. During the day, when you are upright, that gate has an easy job, because gravity is helping it. Everything wants to stay down. But the moment you lie flat for the night, gravity stops taking sides. Now that gate is holding back the contents of your stomach on its own, with no help, for 7 or 8 hours straight. In a younger person, that gate is tight and springy. With age, and with certain very common medications that relax smooth muscle throughout the body, that ring can loosen just enough. It does not have to fail dramatically. It only has to leak a little. And what leaks is not a flood. It is a vapor, an acid mist, fine enough that you never feel it, that drifts up and settles on the tissues at the top of your throat. You sleep right through it. And in the morning, the residue it left behind is that sour, sometimes bitter, sometimes metallic taste. Picture it two ways, because I want this to truly land. Think of an old screen door with a spring that has gone slack over the years. During the day when the wind is at your back, that door stays shut just fine, because everything is pushing it closed anyway. But turn the wind around, let it push from the other side all night, and that tired spring cannot quite hold the door flush. It does not bang open. It just sits ajar by a hair all night long, and that hair is enough to let the draft through. Lying flat is that change in the wind. Or think of it this way. During the day, your stomach is a cup held upright, and even a loose lid keeps the contents in. At night, you have tipped that cup onto its side, and now the only thing between the contents and your throat is that same loose lid, working far harder than it was built to. Researchers who study nighttime reflux have found for years that lying flat measurably increases how far and how often stomach contents travel upward, which is exactly why the acid reaches its highest point of the whole day while you sleep. That is not a scare. That is just plumbing in gravity, and understanding it is the first step to fixing it. If that timing sounds familiar, worst on waking, better once you are vertical, do me a favor and hold that thought, because I am going to come back to whether it is truly yours. First, I need to show you the second overnight system, because for a lot of you, the real story is not the acid at all. And this is the part almost nobody realizes. Your mouth has a built-in rinse cycle, and its name is saliva. We think of spit as nothing, as the stuff we are faintly embarrassed by. But saliva is one of the most quietly heroic fluids your body makes. All day and all night it flows in a thin film across every surface in your mouth, and it is doing several jobs at once. It is washing away debris. It is neutralizing acid. It is carrying off the dead cells and the bacterial leftovers that would otherwise sit there and ferment. Saliva is the reason a healthy mouth resets itself constantly without you ever noticing. It is the rinse cycle that runs in the background of your entire life. Think of a slow stream running over stones. As long as the water keeps moving, the stones stay clean and the water stays fresh, because nothing has a chance to settle and stagnate. Now imagine that same stream slowing to a trickle overnight, barely a drip. The moment the flow drops, everything the water was carrying away starts to sit and collect on the stones instead. That is precisely what happens on the floor of your mouth and across your tongue when the saliva slows. The stream that kept everything fresh becomes too weak to carry the night's debris away, and it pools where it lands. Now here is what changes after 60. Two things happen at once, and they stack. First, the flow of saliva naturally slows a little with age. Second, and this is the big one, a remarkable number of the most common medications taken by older adults reduce saliva as a side effect. Pills for blood pressure, pills for an overactive bladder, antihistamines for allergies, certain antidepressants, medicines for sleep. Not one of them lists dry mouth as the headline, so nobody warns you, but quietly, between them, they can turn your rinse cycle down to a trickle. And here is the thing that makes this so easy to miss. Each pill on its own might only nudge your saliva down a little, a small enough change that you would never connect it to the medicine. But you are not taking one pill. Most people I sit with who are past 60 are taking 3 or 5 or 7 different things, each with its own small drying effect, and those effects do not politely take turns. They add up. 3 medicines that each dry your mouth 10% do not leave you at 10%. They stack towards something you genuinely notice. That is why a person can take the same medications for years, add just one more, and suddenly wonder why their mornings changed, never realizing the new pill was simply the one that tipped an already loaded scale. And at night, the flow drops to its lowest point anyway, because your body is not chewing or eating to stimulate it. So picture what that means. The night is exactly when the residue is piling up, and it is also exactly when your rinse cycle is running slowest. A dry mouth cannot wash the night away. And here is the cruel little twist. When there is less saliva coating your tongue, every taste that is present hits harder, because saliva also buffers and dilutes flavor. So a dry mouth does not just fail to clean up the mess, it amplifies it. The very same trace of residue that a well-rinsed mouth would shrug off lands on a dry tongue like a shout. Raymond, it turned out, was taking a common blood pressure medication and, on rough nights, an antihistamine for his allergies. Both of them, quietly, were drying him out. That empty water glass, his daughter noticed, was not a coincidence. It was the readout of a rinse cycle running on empty. Let me pause here and remind you where we are, because this is the exact spot where I lose people who wander off, and I do not want that to be you. You came here to understand why you wake with a bitter or sour or metallic taste, and I promised you that the taste itself names which of 3 overnight problems is yours. We have covered 2, the acid mist that rises when you lie flat, the rinse cycle that slows with age and medication. There is one more, and it is the one people are most surprised by. And right after it, I am going to give you the part that ties all 3 together into a simple way to tell them apart. That is the piece worth waiting for, so stay with me. If you have found yourself nodding along so far, I would genuinely love to know which of these 2 you suspect is yours. Type the word bitter in the comments if that sharp, sour taste on waking is the one you recognize. It honestly helps me understand what most of you are dealing with, and it helps the next person who finds this video know they are not the only one. Now, the 3rd overnight cause, and this one hides in plain sight, it is your breathing. Specifically, whether you breathe through your nose or through your mouth while you sleep, and whether you snore. A great many older adults have drifted over the years into sleeping with their mouth open. Sometimes it is nasal congestion. Sometimes it is the way the tissues at the back of the throat soften and settle with age. Sometimes it is untreated snoring, where the airway narrows and the body compensates by breathing through the mouth all night long. And when you breathe across your tongue for 7 hours, you do something very simple and very consequential. You dry it out directly, like a breeze blowing over a wet stone until it is chalky. Think about a bar of soap left sitting in a dish by an open window. Overnight, the moving air pulls the moisture off the surface, and by morning it has a dry, cracked crust, even though nothing touched it. That is your tongue after a night of open-mouthed breathing. A tongue that has been air-dried all night has a coated, pasty surface, and that surface holds and sours whatever residue is on it. There is a second thing at work, too. Your nose is not just a passage for air. It warms it, it filters it, and it keeps a healthy moisture balance in the whole system. When you bypass the nose and pull dry room air straight across the mouth all night, you also change the population of bacteria that thrive back there, and some of those shifts carry their own stale or frankly bitter signature by mornings. So the snorer and the mouth breather often wake with the worst morning taste of anyone, and they blame their teeth, when the real culprit is the open mouth and the dry tongue. So now, you have all 3. And here's the part I promised, the part that turns this from interesting into useful. The taste is not random. It leans in a direction, and the direction points at the cause. Let me hand you the key. When the acid mist is the main problem, the taste tends to be genuinely sour, sometimes frankly bitter, and it is often strongest right at the back of the tongue and the throat. It frequently comes with a bit of throat clearing, a morning cough, or a voice that sounds rough for the first hour. The tell is the location, high and toward the back, and the timing, worst the moment you wake after lying flat, easing as soon as you are upright. When the dry mouth from age and medication is the main driver, the whole mouth feels parched, the tongue may feel sticky against the roof of your mouth, and the taste is less a sharp sourness and more a stale, concentrated, sometimes metallic strongness spread across the entire mouth. The tell is that everything is dry and the flavor is everywhere, not localized. And it very often tracks with a medication you started or a dose that changed. When mouth breathing and snoring are the main cause, the tongue itself feels coated and pasty, the dryness is front and center rather than deep in the throat, and a bed partner can usually tell you that you snore or sleep with your mouth open. The tell is the coated tongue plus the report from whoever sleeps next to you. Sit with that for a second, because most of you, reading your own mouth right now, just felt one of those 3 descriptions fit better than the others. That recognition is the whole point. That is your body's report card, and you just learned to read it. Of course, and I will be honest with you here, plenty of people have 2 of these at once, or even all 3, feeding each other. Raymond did. He had a slightly loosened gait letting up a nightly mist, and a rinse cycle slowed by 2 medications, and on allergy nights, a stuffy nose that pushed him into mouth breathing. 3 small things, none of them alarming on its own, stacking into one unpleasant morning taste that he had spent years blaming on inherited heartburn. And that is why the single cause guess so often fails. He had cut out his evening coffee for nothing because coffee was never really the issue. So what happened with Raymond? This is the part I like. The fix was not dramatic, and honestly, the hardest part for him was simply believing it could be that ordinary. Working with his own doctor, he raised the head of his bed a few inches, so gravity was back on the gate's side through the night. His doctor looked at the timing of his medications and made a couple of sensible adjustments to when and how he took them, which eased the dryness. And he treated his nighttime congestion so his nose could do its job and his mouth could stay closed. Now here is the honest truth about how it went, because I do not want to sell you a fairy tale. The taste did not vanish overnight. It faded over a few weeks, gradually enough that Raymond only really noticed one morning when his daughter called and he realized he had not thought about it in days. Most of it lifted. A faint trace still shows up on the occasional bad allergy night. But the daily sour, tinny wake-up that had bothered him for years was simply gone. And more than the taste, what changed was that he finally understood his own mornings. He stopped being quietly afraid of them. Let me give you a clear, practical plan you can start this week, and I want to be clear about something first. This video is for understanding your body, not a substitute for your own doctor, and your situation is yours alone, so bring what you learn here into a real conversation with the people who care for you. With that said, here is where I would begin. First, spend 3 mornings paying close attention to the taste and where it sits, and match it against the 3 tells I gave you. Is it sour and high in the throat? Is it dry and metallic and everywhere? Is it a coated, pasty tongue? That single observation is the most valuable thing you can bring to your doctor because it points at the cause and saves everyone guessing. Second, if the picture looks like the acid mist, the safest first move is a physical one. Raise the head of your bed a few inches, on sturdy blocks or a wedge, so your upper body is gently elevated. This puts gravity back on that gate side all night, and it costs you nothing and risks nothing. It works because you are simply helping the one-way valve do the job that lying flat made harder. Third, and this one matters most, take your full medication list, the prescriptions and the over-the-counter ones, to your doctor or your pharmacist and ask one plain question. Could any of these be drying out my mouth? You are not to stop or change a single thing on your own, ever, and I mean that. But this is a question they can answer quickly, and sometimes a small change in timing or choice made by them restores your rinse cycle without touching what the medication is actually there to do. Fourth, protect the rinse cycle directly. Sip water through the evening rather than gulping it at bedtime. Be a little cautious with alcohol close to sleep, since it both relaxes that gate and dries the mouth, a double hit. And if your mouth runs dry, ask your dentist about the products made specifically to keep the mouth moist overnight. They exist for exactly this, and a dentist can point you to the right one. Fifth, deal with the open mouth. If you know you snore, or you wake with a coated dry tongue, or someone has told you that you stop breathing at night, that is worth a real look. Treating simple nasal congestion may be all it takes for some of you. But loud habitual snoring, especially with pauses, deserves a proper evaluation because it matters far beyond your morning taste. Now let me draw the line for you on when this stops being a mildly annoying taste and becomes something you take in promptly, because that judgment is part of reading the report too. A persistent metallic taste that has no explanation and simply will not go away deserves a proper look, not a shrug. White patches inside your mouth or on your tongue that do not wipe away when you brush should be seen by a dentist or doctor without long delay. A burning tongue paired with visible sores that linger is not something to wait out. And of course, any real trouble swallowing, unexplained weight loss, or a lump warrants prompt attention. Most morning taste is one of the 3 ordinary overnight stories I have told you. But your job is to notice the signal that does not fit the ordinary pattern and to act on that one. If you take nothing else from me today, take that. Here is the comment I would love to see because it tells me you truly got it. Tell me which of the 3 you recognized as yours, and if you have already tried raising the head of your bed, type the word rinse and tell me whether your mornings changed. I read these and your answer genuinely helps me shape what I explain next. Let me leave you with the thing that matters most. That taste you wake up with is not a life sentence, and it is not just age quietly taking something else from you. It is information. It is your body being a good and faithful reporter, telling you plainly what happened in the dark while you slept, and now you know how to read it. That is not a small thing. Most people go their whole lives never understanding the quiet signals their body sends, and you just spent 20 minutes learning to read one. You are further ahead than you think. Before you go, think for a moment about the person in your life this would actually help. It is very often a husband or a wife, someone who has grumbled about a bad taste in the morning for years and has quietly decided it is nothing worth mentioning. That person will almost never go looking for this on their own. They will not type it into a search box. The only way an explanation like this reaches them is if someone who loves them hands it over. So send this to them. You might be the only path it has to the one person who needs it. And if this is the kind of thing you want more of, the slow, quiet signals nobody else takes the time to explain, then come along with me and subscribe, because that is the whole mission of this channel, and there is a new one every week. Next week, I am going to answer the question so many of you have been circling: why you wake with a bone-dry mouth, even when you drink plenty of water all day, and what your body is really trying to tell you when the well runs dry overnight. It ties directly into everything we covered today, and I think it will surprise you. Until then, take care of that quiet reporter inside you and start listening to what it has been trying to say. I'm Dr. James Weatherly. Take good care of yourself this week.